It's a pleasure to introduce Dr. Sergio Yani Garcia. He's a professor of the University of Sydney. He's the director of the Dairy Research Foundation, and he's the leader for animal agriculture in the Sydney Institute of Agriculture. Yani also had the immense pleasure of running the Future Dairy Project for many years, and the second privilege of being my PhD supervisor a couple of years ago. So it's an honor to have Yani sharing his time here today with us. So I'll share presenter rights with Yani now.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Nico, for the introduction, and thank you for this initiative. It's absolutely terrific. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everyone, wherever you are in the world. It's a real pleasure to be here, to be with you here, and share these few minutes talking about the AMS and R&D in AMS. So it's, of course, this presentation is not working. Here it is. What I will do today, I thought was going to give a quick overview of the current situation, which Brendan Cullen described a little bit before me in the morning, but mainly to talk about past and present research in pasture-based AMS, and particularly with some examples of the automation beyond AMS, which is what we are mostly focusing at the moment, and finish it off with hopefully just a few reflections on where to next. So the current situation, as Brendan described, there are less than 50 farms, 45 actually, plus 2 farms, the AMS farms being installed at the moment. And in the map, you can see the distribution of those farms in Australia. There are more than 150 boxes or units within those farms, and there are 2 actual operating robotic rotaries in Australia. So to give a context, bear in mind that the total number of farms, of conventional farms in Australia, is about 5,500 dairy farms at the moment. Perhaps important to highlight is that about 85% of these 45 farms are actually pasture-based, and with very few farms being totally confined. In terms of adoption, Australia and New Zealand in general have been a lot less quickly, I suppose, than other countries, as the graph on the right-hand side shows. And the key drivers, if you bear in mind that we only have 45 farms, so we're still in the early adopters innovation phase of the adoption. And I'd say that perhaps industry vision, lifestyle, and has been one of the key drivers for many of those farms. Succession planning, in particularly how to attract or seeing this as a way to attract those basically new generations on farm. And for some has been an option to grow the business without actually increasing labor, similar to what Jim was saying for US, for that part of US. The key challenges for some of the farms have been perhaps matching reality with expectations. For many of them, the challenge or I suppose for the lack of more quickly rate of adoption, I would also highlight the current industry or the common industry challenges in terms of the milk price, the situation in the industry, the drought. We are here in New South Wales and Queensland facing the worst drought in history, and of course the feed costs associated with those, particularly with those years of drought. And for some also has been a challenge the fact that some farms have not been able to materialize really the potential advantage of AMS in terms of labor reduction, milking frequency increases, and associated or potentially associated increase in milk yield per cow. So talking about the previous research, as Nico mentioned, I had the pleasure to lead this project Future Dairy for several years. We started this project with Professor Bill Fulkerson in 2004, and the project finished at the 4 phases in 2017. Future Dairy it was more than AMS. They had a strong component on feed-based and intensification of systems, conventional systems. But obviously, a very important part of Future, particularly the last phase of Future, was the research and R&D in AMS or robotic milking. The project has been completed now, but it's still available as a resource of publications, material, some of the examples I'm going to be mentioning today. And also, as you can see in the bottom right corner of the slide, there is a continuation of the project on evolution, I should say, in the Milking Edge project that Nico runs from within New South Wales CPI, together with the Australian De Laval. And this project in Milking Edge is focusing, as Nico explained earlier, in extension and training more than research. I couldn't go ahead without acknowledging a pivotal figure of Future Dairy, which has been a journey over the years, and Dr. Kendra Kerris, who was the leader of this part of the project. She was absolutely pivotal for all the research and development that has occurred within this project. Kendra has now retired from academia, and she's very successfully running her own agricultural business. Just to give you a little bit of an idea of, at the beginning of the project, we focused a lot more on pasture utilization and voluntary traffic, basically to address the one of what we saw as the key issue at the beginning, represented in the graph at the top right-hand side of the screen, showing that for pasture-based system, there is a huge drop in visitation, voluntary cow visitation during the early hours of the morning, compared to the graph on the bottom, which represents a well-managed, good traffic farm in the Netherlands in this case. So a lot of the research was done to address those issues, and here one of the key piece of work was Nico's PhD thesis, who was the first one to basically quantify the potential advantage of working with three-way grazing compared to two-way grazing, which is now, as everyone knows, very massively adopted by most farms in pasture-based conditions. At that time, we also did a lot of the research and breed differences, feed allocation, the use of different flavors in pellets, to anything that could potentially attract cow visitation to the dairy and increase voluntary traffic, which is obviously in pasture-based system is one of the key issues, exacerbated in countries like Australia by the weather conditions, particularly the hot summers. There was a lot of work on forage crops as well. Again, everything looking for different options to enhance and increase the menu of options for farmers who may need to look into different specific alternatives for their farms. And all that, including a lot of work on large herds, was encapsulated as best as we could in the Future Dairy Management Guidelines for pasture-based AMS, which were then extended into management for large herds as well. These guidelines are still available on the website and can be accessed through as a PDF, but also as an interactive module on the web, as shown in the right-hand corner. The second phase, crucial phase of Future Dairy journey, was the co-development of the robotic rotary with De Laval. And this slide shows a lot of years of work from the graph on the left-hand side. Was the actual graph slide that Professor Bill Fulkerson and myself used in discussions with De Laval in 2004. And from that to the evolution of the 16-bale AMR prototype that was installed at our project here in Camden in 2009, to the bottom right-hand side little video showing the commercial version 24-bale AMR installed at the University of Sydney, which is the milking machine still being used at that farm. In terms of current research, over the years, we moved a little bit more into animal behavior, health, and welfare. And again, I'm not going to go into a lot of details. I'm just going to mention examples to give the audience a little bit of a scope of what we did over the years, and the work of now PhD students and now doctors Alex John and Ashley Wildridge was actually pivotal here as well. In the case of Alex, he worked mainly trying to determine the different aspect of feed allocation at day, night, at different patterns, and this is actually very interesting and will surely give a place for new research and new insights in that area. And in Ashley's case, she worked with heat stress from different regions in Australia, but perhaps her more important contribution was this paper just published in the Journal of Dairy Science, dealing with the transitioning from conventional to automatic milking and the human-animal relationships. In the Ashley did as part of her thesis, sorry, there was not coming from the system there. As part of the thesis, Nico, sorry, is someone unmuted there?
I thought it was you.
Can you hear me okay? Sorry.
Yes, now yes, sorry, there was somebody else unmuted.
Yeah, I was just describing part of Ashley's work where she did this very nice study looking into 5 farms that were about to convert from conventional system to AMS. So she went to the farm 5-6 months before the conversion, and she took a lot of objective measurements or systematic measurements of human-animal relationship, including avoidance tests to measure the distance that the cows will tolerate before avoiding human. And she repeated that work 6 months after the conversion to AMS. And just to give you a little idea of this of that work, in this table, you can see how the avoidance of the avoidance distance decreased in AMS in 4 out of the 5 farms consistently, basically indicating that how cows become more calmer in AMS compared to CMS. And this is something that obviously every farmer can see by herself or himself, and is quite easily observed in all AMS, or most of AMS systems, but this was a way to actually quantify that human-animal interaction. Current research also, we are looking into, now that we have a really consistent and systematic data coming from commercial farms. Juan Gargiulo, a PhD student, is doing this, looking into the economic analysis of pasture-based AMS farms, and he's comparing 14 data from 3 years from 14 farms, which is about 30% of the total number of farms in Australia, the AMS farms, compared to 100 conventional farms selected to represent the size and the region of those 14 AMS farms as well. So without going into a lot of details, just his work is showing that there is basically no significant differences in productivity or profitability of AMS farms compared to conventional farms. The graph also shows that there was very little profitability in any business, in any dairy business over the last few years in Australia, on average. But also his data is showing huge variation in both for conventional and AMS, in basically meaning that with the same conditions, the same similar range of price, milk price, there are farmers really doing very well and farmers doing not that well. And an example of that is this graph showing the 14 farms being monitored in relation to the number of cows operated per full-time equivalent on farm, and basically showing that the average for the AMS farms is around 100 cows per full-time equivalent compared to 90 for the conventional average, so very similar. But the most important perhaps is that there is still a huge potential, as shown by another of our PhD students, now Dr. Juan Molfino, whose work showed that the potential for Australia was around the 180 to 200 cows per full-time equivalent. And perhaps even more important is the fact that for that farm at the right-hand side, the labor costs represent more than half of the milk income, compared to only 13% for the top operating farm. So again, farm with similar conditions, very, very different utilization of resources, and very different utilization of resources and effectiveness in the results. So moving into current research, is more, we have been concentrating a lot more in automation beyond AMS. I'm gonna give some examples. The work by Momena Khatun, who finished her PhD just now, and she worked on using data from the AMS systems to better and early and detect mastitis with higher accuracy and earlier. And for example, this work showing that on the right-hand side, the new method which combines electrical conductivity, milk yield, milk flow, and incomplete milkings in different units, all of them, and had a much better sensitivity and specificity compared to all the individual measurements themselves. And another very important work from Momena was the potential contribution to further development of AMS in relation to which milk is the one being used for monitoring for mastitis. This paper just published shows that the fall milk, the milk is actually not being used, the milk is actually discarded by the cleaning process in understand all the brands, is a lot more informative for detecting probability of mastitis when there is mastitis present. Cameron Clark, Associate Professor Cameron Clark, working with the PhD John Gardiner, they are doing this fantastic work with detecting lameness automatically. And in this case, John is actually using Xbox cameras, simple cameras that really, he's an engineer, developed algorithms to find the hooves of the cows and follow them and calculate all the distances that you can imagine, that you can see some of them represented in those graphs on the right-hand side of the slide, and showing how different they are between a normal cow, that the one that just passed now, compared to a cow with a lame cow that will have all those parameters and distances between, legs, etc., completely distorted. So again, this is there are several groups in the world working on different aspects of different ways to detecting lameness. This is, but this is definitely a field in which automation beyond AMS is coming quite heavily, and it's very, very close for commercial application. Another aspect we are working on automation beyond AMS is the remote pasture management, basically with two goals. One is the goal of increasing accuracy by using the combination of different sensors and data from different sources. The other key objective, and perhaps far more important, is how we're going to use it to actually improve management decision on farm, basically helping the farm to make more and better decisions without completely bypassing his or her decision-making process. And this is the work on the right-hand side of the graph, showing a work that we are doing in collaboration with New South Wales DPI and local land services here in Australia. And what the graph shows is that the differences in biomass can be detected practically between 3 or 4 weeks before what we could detect by eye, by just our visual observation of the paddock or the satellite images. That's another example. Virtual herding. This is the work done by Dr. Sabrina Lomax and Patricia Coluso, PhD student, and you can see in the image how cows are really keen to get to the end of that laneway or paddock, because they know there's feed there for them, and they all came back when they have an audio signal first, and then followed by electric shock that prevent them to keep going. So this is a technology that is definitely working. It's being tested in different systems, different farms in different states in Australia, and has a strong application for AMS in the future. Imagine three-way grazing with no actual physical fences. That would be terrific for most pasture-based AMS farmers. I don't think it's going to be really the electric shock the way that this will be achieved, but definitely I think there will be virtual herding happening in AMS in the future for managing grazing and feeding in farms. And the last example, the work basically milking the data, and with two examples. The first one with Dr. Juan Morfino and Fernando Macias, another PhD student, who with different methods, they both look into determining more efficient AMS cows, or finding more efficient AMS cows. And we actually were able to show that there are cows in the herd consistently producing about between 7 to 10% more milk, with 7 to 10% less milking than the herd mates. And this is really important when we think in the previous presentation from Doug, I think was from Wisconsin, showing the potential of achieving more than 3,600 liters per box per day. So really finding these more efficient cows and new phenotype for AMS is quite crucial. And Sarah Legg at the bottom, she's working on looking into data from automatic calf feeders, just trying to find out in the first place what is that explain or could explain the different performance between calves that have the same management in very top well-managed farms and achieve or double the weight 1, 2, or 3 weeks later than the most efficient calves, and we want to follow them beyond the calf rearing period as well. So where to next? To finish off with the field reflections, I think there's going to be 3 key areas that we can work on. The first one is to really exploit the potential of AMS as we are seeing, and I hope I have been able to show that as well in this presentation. There is a huge potential of AMS that's not readily exploited or achieved by our farmers. So there is a really good piece of work to be done there to find out what is happening, what are the key impediments, why some of those farms are not able to achieve what the potential in research seems to be showing. The second area is data, of course, and as I gave some examples, and there was also some very good insight from Liliana in Wisconsin as well before. There's a really opportunity there for to do a lot more than we're doing today with the data. I show some example of the work we are doing, and definitely every group is working on this as well. And the last one is, in my opinion, one of the greatest potential, which is reduce complexity without actually reducing the complexity. Basically saying or using all these automation technologies and digital agriculture to remove move the complexity from the top of the scene to behind the scene. So the complexity will definitely be there, but we can, from the management point of view, or the manager or the farmer point of view, we can do a lot better for better lifestyle, more profitability, more productivity, and less complexity. And to finish off, I do want to highlight the terrific work of all our PhD students, including Nikolai was there in the middle some time ago. But for us, it's an absolutely key role, education through science, as we call it, and it's a pleasure to have worked with all these PhD students, and we really hope to keep doing this for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Yani, for that presentation. Really very good and insightful into the areas of work that you're leading, and the great work that a lot of the students do, as you mentioned. I've got a couple of questions that came through.
Nico?
And can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I was just saying thank you very much for that presentation. Really insightful into a lot of the work that the Dairy Science Group and the University of Sydney and those projects are leading, and the students. So thank you for sharing that with us. We've had a couple of questions come through. The first one is, what does integration of technology look like in the future of dairy farms?
Can you hear me? I think it was, yes, I can see it. Integration of technology, I really think it's what is coming is really the era of transformation for dairy farms. So far, we have seen and we have done, and we have been, as not only us, many around the world, using and getting data, acquiring data from many different sources. But now the time has come to convert really that into really practical solutions that can drive productivity, profitability, and lifestyle forward.
Excellent, and I second that opinion. I think it's really true. Aligned with that one, if the future of dairy is going to be transformational around technology, what do you think about the skills that are required in dairy if we think about all these technologies coming on board? Will that see an influx of new skills into the industry?
Yes, absolutely. I see there are different levels of thought, I suppose, or different ways of addressing that question. There is on the one hand the need for new skills like are able to manage these more complex technologies and systems. But on the other hand, there is the possibility of us working collaboratively and in a multidisciplinary approach, I suppose, to develop new solutions that will actually make the application of those solutions a lot easier for the people on the ground, as I was saying before, in removing the complexity. So I think it's overall, in my opinion, I think it's very attractive because the people coming on farm will be attracted by a range of different things and possibilities, not just milking cows, which is fair enough for some, but obviously for a very few.
Yeah, I think that if used in a smart way, can help attract a lot of good skills into the industry. The last one is, you mentioned a lot of technologies around the dairy and the milk harvesting, the pasture and the animal. What would you recommend a farmer looking at these type of technologies to consider?
Oh, what a good question. Again, as I said, I think most of them, and we are in the same boat, I suppose, most of them are not quite ready for really solving the solution, so real problems on farm. I think, in my opinion, for the pasture-based system, I will be looking first of all in which technology allows me to really have a quantum leap in productivity, and particularly in utilization of pasture on farm. That is one that is actually changing rapidly, and there is even commercial options available for doing that. And I personally believe if you look at the average farms in Australia, not just AMS, conventional as well, it is where the most of the significant possibility of increased profitability relates, I suppose.
Excellent. Yani, well, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for putting together this. Thank you for joining. Thank you for sharing that journey that I had the privilege to be part of it in the past and currently now too. So thank you again. Yes, and we'll be in touch.
My pleasure, Nico, and congratulations to you for this extraordinary initiative.
No worries. Thank you.